through them, and that's now 4 kills for Ezreal up top with Reginald, and he's looking very, very strong.
Yeah, meanwhile, bottom lane, X Special, interesting choice. He actually goes straight for the ability power. He picked up that needlessly large rod after the Dorn's Blade, and he just showed the power of Kennen being able to cycle those abilities. He dropped Lee Sin dangerously low and actually was going in for the kill. If Nubby Pooh Bear hadn't been there, he definitely would have picked up that kill. We see Dyrus mid lane, 59 minion kills to Darius. He's a little bit behind Yuzuki's Darius, who is at 71 minion kills and just picked up that Phage. So we'll potentially be able to chunk him down, which is
look at those
exactly
cutes.
what he's doing. Yeah, and especially with those passive bleed stacks, we see Dyrus down to 50% in less than 3 seconds.
Yeah, and we were talking about that Lee Sin getting beat on by Kennen. I actually have to worry for Hai as this game progresses. Normally, Lee Sin has a huge kind of power spike in his mobility in the early game, being able to impact lanes, and then it's just like power in the mid game. Just he has very good attack damage scaling on his abilities, and he scales well off that early Rigo's Lantern. But the fact that he's kind of 1 and 3 already, not really gaining any advantages, I hope he can transition somehow as a big fight goes down mid.
Yeah, flash going down from Yuzuki to get out of that fight. Great counter initiate from Chaos. Are they going to go for the dive? Dyrus does have his ultimate down. His clone is chasing down Yuzuki and Hai, and no, it looks like they're just going to back off. However, it looks, I believe Dyrus and Special are going to try and push down this middle lane.
Yeah, and we didn't mention that they have actually killed the bottom tower, so now Kennen is roaming up and around the map. Really, what TSM does very well is as they look to be killing Yuzuki, and a big fight goes down. I'll let you take it, Charles.
Yeah, Special getting an ultimate down, and it looks like X Special is going to be able to get out. However, Nubby Pooh Bear in a bit of trouble. Great shuriken from X Special, but I think Nubby Pooh Bear is going to be able to take him out. Yes, he is. There's the shutdown. Overall, 3-for-1 in favor of TSM. They are now leading 13 kills to 7, 22,200 gold to 16,700 gold, 2 towers to nothing, and TSM showing just how good of League of Legends players they are, not just in their specific roles, but just in general.
Yeah, and the big thing that they do so well is once they kill the first tower and in that one laning phase, they go around and take out the first row of towers very efficiently. So they killed that first tower. Reginald was just like, oh yeah, it's time to start roaming around. They pushed down top. Kennen came mid. They were able to generate kills, although they did not get a tower. But they're just extremely good at forcing once they end that laning phase and just putting the other team on their heels.
Yeah, and Reginald actually arcane shifting in, dropping Nian below half health, and then flashing out. So Reginald just trying to be so aggressive. Another max range grab from Lemon Nation, but a fantastic ult from Otto, and Reginald getting exhausted. Nian will be able to take him out. Great play, and Reginald's now in a 3v1 situation. However, he is just going to go for this kill on Nian as Nubby Pooh Bear comes in just to make sure he goes down. So even when TSM gets taken out, great 2-0 exchange for oRB Gaming. Reginald going for that kill to the bitter end.
Yeah, and even though that was a bit of a misplay by Reginald getting over-aggressive and trying to finish something off, Team Solo Mid still took an objective off of that. There were so many people that got pulled up to top lane because the Odd One and Reginald were pushing so hard and being so successively aggressive that they were just able to take a free open tower. That was Kennen and York, and I believe Shyvana all joined in for that. Overall, they're just very, very good at applying pressure, and that's now the row of 3-outer turrets, tons and tons of global gold. They're going to put that into items and then probably force more objectives.
Yeah, and taking a look at the items, we see X Special actually picking up the Zhonya's Hourglass, so that needlessly large rod factoring really well into that early build. He's going to be able to dive into those fights, and I can't wait to see what he's going to be doing with this. Speaking of which, he's going to be going into this. Chaos will be helping him out. Will he be dropping his ultimate? His ultimate is up, and we see Nubby Pooh Bear in as well. There's the ultimate as Chaos dives in as well. Nubby Pooh Bear in a heap of trouble. Zhonya's going down on X Special. Fantastic bait, and he's going to get out with a sliver of health, and that is a 2-for-0 so far. Will they be able to take out Nian? No, Nian will get out alive, but overall a 3-for-0 for TSM. X Special with that Zhonya's that we had just mentioned. Great bait.
Yeah, and he is going. That was actually a textbook example of how exactly to use Zhonya's. So many people I see that build the Zhonya's Hourglass on Kennen and Morgana, the two casters that's most likely to be seen on, just use it right after their ultimate, just because they think that's what they're supposed to do. They say, oh, I used my ultimate, now it still works when I'm Zhonya's, so that's when I'm supposed to hit it, right? But what X Special did is he used his ultimate and then only used his Zhonya's when he was most attractive to be targeted. So it's more of a defensive mechanism for saying, I'm in the middle of the team, I need a way to drop aggro, and that's exactly what he did there. He waited until actually his ultimate was done before he popped his Zhonya's, but it baited Nubby Pooh Bear and the rest of Orbit into trying to finish him off because they'd gotten him so low, they just wanted to finish him off right there.
Yeah, and interesting choice for Reginald to be able to pick up the blue. However, with the resourceless Shyvana and Kennen, it's really going to benefit him most. So that's just going to let him spam his spells even more and potentially build on that 5-1 scoreline.
Yeah, and giving the blue buff to Ezreal is probably the best thing to do. They have, as you said, resourceless Kennen and Shyvana, and Ezreal, of all the attack damage carries, probably benefits the most from blue buff. He gets to spam so many of his abilities, and it just really increases his effectiveness. Reginald, with that Bloodthirster early especially, that attack damage goes into his Mystic Shot, his Q, so really those Qs hit hard, and he will be able to throw out as many as he wants.
Yeah, Reginald he has an elixir in his inventory, still hasn't used it yet, but definitely will be so strong. Speaking of strong, TSM about 7,000 gold up on Orbit Gaming, and they are just putting on a clinic. And interesting choice, I really like X-Special not going for the revolver. The revolver is almost a go-to for most Kennen players, so it's really cool to see a different style of Kennen from X-Special, who's very obviously so talented with him. Reginald, once again, using that ultimate to put pressure on the lanes, and TSM may look to start something here.
Yeah, and regardless if this starts or not, a lot of times, this is what X-Special is showing, build shouldn't be standard, build should be out of necessity. A lot of times you build the Hextech Revolver because you need to sustain in lane and you need to counter-harass, but Nubby Pooh Bear was not harassing him. That was a kind of farm-off lane. Nubby Pooh Bear's only goal in that lane was to get as many creep kills as he can and then capitalize when ganks came. But he wasn't thinking about harassing X-Special. X-Special knew that Zhonya's Hourglass is the best teamfight Kennen item, and he wanted to force team fights. He didn't need to worry about laning. So that's why he built that over the Hextech Revolver, and I think we need to see more of that.
Yeah, definitely. And we see Nubby Pooh Bear actually going for the building that Glacial Shroud as well as going for the Negatron Cloak. So he still has the Tear of the Goddess, and so he's primarily going for that mana build on Ryze. Now, what do you think about the not going for any ability power? Now, Ryze's abilities being able to potentially scale off of ability power as well.
It's a choice, definitely. The mana build means he wants to be more of a tanky bruiser, but if he really wants to start chunking for damage, he needs to build ability power. So his choice is saying, Darius and Graves and Lee Sin do enough damage, I need to worry about staying alive, which I can't disagree with how hard he was getting dove by Kaoxia Shyvana and X-Special's Kennen. He really needs to be able to take some beating as well as dishing out his damage. So it's a tough road for Nubby Pooh Bear right now because his team is quite far behind. You feel like you need to do the damage, but I do think it's the right build.
Yeah, at this point in time, what do you feel that TSM needs to do to just shut the door on this match?
They really need to just keep doing what they've been doing. They've taken the 3 outer towers. They need to continue to move into Orbit's jungle and just take their buffs on recharge, get the next dragon, and then they need to de-ward around Baron like they're doing and just kind of wait for Orbit to get pressured into checking and then initiate a fight from there. If they don't check, they can just take it. So if they get the wards up for the approach, they're going to be able to do whatever they want around the Baron pit.
Yeah, and it looks like Kaox potentially trolling a little bit, baiting out a
Yeah, but they're doing Baron right now. He's actually distracting them.
Yeah, fantastic bait from Kaox as we actually saw pings go down just as you were talking about TSM ward clearing going into Baron. Looks like Orb has no idea that this is happening because they don't have the vision. Dyrus tanking it out, and there's as soon as they see that buff on Shyvana, yep, and there they go, potentially trying to make something happen, but a little bit too late as TSM picks up Baron number 1 at 21 minutes.
Yeah, and I like the psychology of that play too, because who would try to do Baron without their jungler, right? So Kaox was just sitting around just being like, we're not at Baron. If we were at Baron, then we'd have our Smite guy there. And meanwhile, they're just 3-manning Baron, crushing it down with Reginald's, blue buff and huge amounts of attack damage. Smart play. This is how TSM closes things out.
Absolutely, and we see Dyrus finally picking up that Trinity Force, and he's also, I believe he picked up a Kindle Gem as well, so he'll be getting a little bit of extra health, and looks like, meanwhile, Shyvana grabbing that Frozen Heart, so we'll be able to chase down, as we see Reginald, once again, using that ultimate to great effect to just stop a push, because he pretty much destroyed every minion that was alive at that point in that lane.
Yeah, and the thing with Ezreal's ultimate is it's actually on a fairly short cooldown, so it's not a bad thing to use it for minion kills, and it's actually fairly attractive to do so. It gets the bonus effect of being a bit of harass, and it's just a great farming tool. So unlike a lot of those other ultimates that do a huge amount of damage in team fights, it has the added utility of being used to just stop pushes in their tracks.
Yeah, and speaking of Reginald, Reginald has a Bloodthirster, he has a Zeal, he has a second BF sword, so he's potentially building into that Infinity Edge. Meanwhile, Nien just trying to finish his Infinity Edge. He has the BF sword, he has the pickaxe, he also has the Vamp Scepter for a little bit of extra sustain, but really big disparity in that gold, especially on that 5-1, 187 minion kills Reginald.
Yeah, I'd have to say Team Solom had either split or won kind of every individual role this game. Reginald is much farther ahead than Yen, a lot more farm. Navi Pooh Bear, despite being quite strong, those Zhonya's Hourglass ultimates from X Special on Kennen have just been so impactful. And now the fact that they have Baron, they might actually try to just dive straight on top of them. If not, they're going to take out the rest of the outer towers.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah, they really want to put a lot of pressure down here. If they don't get damage on this tower, though, they really should go around and clear the other outside towers. I feel like they want to get aggressive here. It's just a matter of someone making the call and going in. If it is someone, expect it to be X Special, actually, because he can get the initiate and then become untargetable with that Zhonya's. So the fact that they're waiting around like this makes me think they want to go in on the next wave. Yorick Quadra. He's going for it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just a selfless play there, jumping in, knew he was going to take a bunch of damage, put himself inside of a tower. Looks like they're just going to try to push to end this game. They may be able to kill off the Nexus. They get the kill on them. TSM might actually have to fall back here despite clearing off so much, and yes, they do. But going back to the previous fight as TSM falls back here, really crisp execution on that tower dive. So much about just manning up and all going in together. Because if you do not do that on top of a tower, you know, that's why tower dives don't work.
Thought it was just a harmless breeze.
Yeah, absolutely. 25 minutes, 30 seconds, about 43,000 gold to 31,000. TSM in a commanding lead. Reginald, 5-1, 201 creep kills. We saw Dyrus actually building that Kindle Gem into a Spirit Visage, so getting a little bit of extra survivability, especially off of those E's, which are going to give him a little bit of extra health regen. We see X Special finishing off that Rabadon's Death Cap. He actually wants Sorcerer's Shoes, so he's going full out offensive, also picking up a blue elixir. Meanwhile, Chaos on Shyvana may be able to finish off that Wit's End, has the Wriggles Lantern and the Heart of Gold, as well as the Frozen Mallet. And Odd One getting that Shurelius, he's got those cooldown boots as well as the Heart of Gold and Cage's lucky pick. So TSM fully stocked, ready to push in and finish this game.
Yeah, so really, they should have finished it on the last push. They didn't quite make it there. Looks like they're going to try to go in one more time. It might actually be somewhat tricky for them. If they try to harass down, Orbit's going to be able to just go right back to the base and heal. It's a matter of if they can focus down the Nexus hard enough together and just man up and finish it, or whether they try to do a team fight right here.
Yeah, it looks like they're just going to be going in for the fight. There's the snare onto Reginald.